When we first came to this church 5.5 years ago, Jill and I determined to myself that what I wanted to do was, as quickly as possible, take as many of the pastors as I could out to eat for lunch, just because I wanted to know the people who I was going to put my family under their leadership. And one of the very first meals that I had was with Jeremy Olimb. What was the name of the place? Ted's Hot Dogs. Anyway, in Tempe, the conversation was what was great. Jeremy is a great thinker, and I just don't say that to him because I work with him every week. I say it because I believe it. He processes things. He wrestles with topics, and I have been challenged by that. In fact, he and Rachel's walk through healthcare with their sons has changed my view on things because of their testimony. And Jeremy and I could talk about politics all day long, and I love that, and I cannot do that with anybody else because no one wants to do that. Anyway, welcome Jeremy Olimb, our very own.
Thanks, buddy. Don't let him lie to you. He loved that hot dog. I told him we're going to start at the bottom of the food barrel because if this works out, we're going to work our way up. What's the bottom? Hot dogs. It was a great hot dog. I want to thank everybody, before I get started, for coming out tonight. This is the third year that we've organized this event, and it's quickly become one of my favorite things that I get to help coordinate and get to participate in. I'm super honored that this many of you would carve out time to come out on a Friday night and listen to a bunch of people talk to you. The stories that are generated out of our community are important, and we pray that these talks have encouraged you and challenged you, and I hope what I have to say maybe does a little bit of that too. From the beginning of planning this event this year, I said right off the bat, I want to speak this year, and I knew what I thought I wanted to talk about. And in the past few weeks, as we've spun up promotion about the event, and it's come up in conversation with people that I'm speaking, people naturally say, well, what are you talking about? And when I would tell them, their responses were very interesting. I started to record the responses that I got from a few people so that I could share them with you. Seriously? Yikes. Somebody else said, better you than me. It's very encouraging. Another person said, so you're going to tell us all how to think, huh? And my favorite, good luck, you're going to get killed. Now, these responses, and this was not all of them, did two things. Firstly, it made me very nervous to be up here tonight. Secondly, it actually convinced me more than ever that this is something that I needed to talk about tonight. So here I am tonight to talk to you about politics. Political involvement was not something that I was looking for in my life. When my wife Rachel and I began our family, and our first son, and then our second son, and then our third son was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, it put us on a path that has led us to many places that we didn't plan for. And over the past 12 years, we've engaged in every aspect of the fight against cystic fibrosis that has been made available to us because we've made a commitment to fight for our boys and for the community that we found ourselves a part of. About 5 years ago, the door was open to be involved in political advocacy for our community, and we walked through that door. And since then, we've made many trips to Washington, D.C. We spent many hours in meetings with congresspeople. We've sent many emails, posted tweets, made phone calls, wrote letters. Now, I've been able to advocate alongside my wife and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and that's also led to opportunities to return to Washington as an advocate for other organizations like the One campaign that we've been involved with here at our church. To say this journey has been surprising would be an understatement, but maybe most surprising is how engaging in this way has forced me to rethink my involvement with our nation's political life. As I've pushed into political engagement, I've been put into a place where I've had to confront some things that were deeply rooted in my heart when it came to our political system. And as a pastor who's committed to this community and to seeing us shaped together to be an outpost of the kingdom of God here in the East Valley of Phoenix, I want to share with you some of the things that I've personally been wrestling with when it comes to politics. And I think the timing of this is key, because between this Life Collective and the time we hold the next one, we'll be going through a presidential election, which will put Christians into countless conversations, both in person as well as online, about the future of our country, about our hopes for our communities, and the world will be watching our witness as we engage in that. So I want to give you a few things tonight that I've become convinced of as I've prayerfully thought through my engagement in the political sphere. I have 5 pithy quotes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them. The first one is this: I'm convinced that all of life is all for Jesus, even my political life. As a church, we confess this comprehensive phrase, all of life is all for Jesus, but we all also know that that phrase can often feel aspirational more than reality. When we desire to live as a faithful people, we have to be constantly looking for the areas in our life that we want to be allowed to exist outside of that all. And many times, because our political opinions and affiliations are informed and shaped by distant voices, and those opinions impact causes that are distant enough from our personal experience that they can be reduced to simple philosophical concepts, it's easy to detach this part of our life from the claim that all of our life is lived for Jesus. In my political life, my political opinions, my political voice, my political vote is all a real part of all of life, and I have a responsibility to consider those things deeply. Do those parts of my life line up with the succinct call of Jesus to his church? Mainly, do they demonstrate my love for God and my love for neighbor? Do my political positions and the way that I express them bring blessing into the world or curse? The second thing I've considered is this: the right thing is always worth fighting for, but never with the wrong weapons. It has occurred to me that in being involved in advocacy, that fighting for what I truly believe to be right always comes with a temptation to pick up the wrong weapons in the fight. Political fights are often quick to degrade into ones that are fought with power and influence, control, manipulation, and coercion. These are the weapons of the political class. These are the weapons of the powers that want to run our world. These are not the weapons of the church. In his letter to the Roman church, the Apostle Paul uses words to describe what a broken world looks like, what its modus operandi is, and he says that this broken world is full of envy, strife, deceit, malice, gossip, slander, insolence, arrogance, and boasting. They are without understanding, fidelity, love, or mercy. The political infighting that is rife in the American system is filled with these things. And I have to resist being lured into using those same weapons, even if they're in defense of the right thing. Thirdly, feel free to disagree, but never dehumanize. One thing that was very surprising for me as I began to have conversations with senators and congresspeople in their offices about the issues that we were fighting for is that I always hoped going in that it would be a friendly office that believed what I already wanted to talk to them about. But what I found really quickly is that those conversations felt good for a moment and then very quickly felt useless. We're all here talking about how much we like each other. What are we doing? It was in the offices where I found fundamental disagreement that I felt our work was actually doing some good. And face-to-face, in those meetings where we disagreed and where conversations were difficult and sometimes frustrating, because we were across the table from a real person, it was easy to keep a cool head and to discuss the issues. And then what I found is when we wandered out of those offices and talked about those issues later or heard discussions about those issues later, it was so easy for me to begin attacking those people in my heart and to build a case against them. And as a result, I've made it a habit to remind myself that those I disagree with are made in the image of God, and they are worthy of basic courtesy and respect as much as I can give it to them. Fourth thing, my team is rarely as virtuous as I want them to be, and their team is rarely as monstrous as I claim them to be. In the last 6 years of leading discipleship conversations here at this church, a constant theme that comes up and that I teach on is how to identify idols in the life of the Christian. I describe for people that one way that you can identify an idol that your heart is clinging on to is to watch how you behave when someone criticizes or threatens something in your life. When your idol comes under fire, it's easy to see because you respond in anger and defensiveness and minimizing and deflection and accusation, and we often turn the tables and start attacking the person who brought the criticism to us. And it's very easy for us to fall into that kind of political idolatry when we're unable to be honest about the failures and missteps of those on our sides, and to turn the other side into monsters in order to protect our positions. In face-to-face meetings with many people on both sides of the aisle, I'm reminded that neither side is a paragon of good and neither side is a black hole of evil. There is good to affirm and people who are doing peacemaking work on both sides of the political spectrum. And as a peacemaking people, we need to be on the lookout for that kind of good wherever it occurs. We have a responsibility as Christians to praise what is good and condemn what is evil, no matter what political ideology it springs from. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with one last thing. There is no king but Jesus, and he hasn't endorsed my candidate. Yeah. I'm reminding myself as I head into this next presidential election that Jesus isn't running for president. And I didn't receive his letter of endorsement or recommendation for a candidate yet, and I don't anticipate that it's coming anytime soon. There will be a move afoot in the next few months from both the left and from the right that we as Americans are engaging in some sort of holy war. There will be a claim pushed upon us that the hope and the future of the world is at stake because of the outcome of the upcoming contest. And I keep trying to remind myself that this couldn't be any further from the truth. The war for the future of this world has already been won. There is a victor. His name is Jesus. And that makes me free to do what I think is right, to call out injustice, and then rest in the fact that I have a king and I don't have to make my candidate into one. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm really happy that you're here. Have a good night.